Would you choose to live in this house? How about this one? Derelict buildings might not be most people's idea of home sweet home, and yet more and more of London students are choosing to live in these empty buildings as they struggle to find affordable accommodation. With student fees set to treble to £9,000 by 2012, this trend can only be expected to escalate.
I've seen some people who've managed to get themselves through university or through degrees by squatting. I've seen a lot of beautiful empty houses, which is a waste.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. As long as, I think it's better for someone to be making use of the house, especially when you consider there's so many homeless people on the road as well.
I probably wouldn't squat unless the house was really, really nice. I guess I have an impression of kind of where people squat as being this is probably really prejudiced, but kind of dirty.
Frankie Legere studies at the London College of Communications. She's been squatting for 3.5 months.
I disagree with there being so much space in London that's not being used. And I think if there's empty derelict buildings and people move in and do it, keep it, lived in, I think that's fine. If I wasn't living here, I'd probably be homeless because I haven't got my learning through yet, and I wouldn't be able to study if I didn't have this place. When I didn't know about the squatting scene, I always thought squatters I don't know. I just imagine this bad picture of drugs and prostitution and stuff like that. But now I know it's nothing like that.
What would you say is the best thing about squatting?
The freedom of not having to ask permission to do things like paint, have a party, change furniture. You could do anything. There's no rules. It's just it's cool.
Alex Morton studies at the Camberwell College of Art and Design. He's Frankie's friend and squat mate. Alex explains why squatting is a good option for him.
I'm squatting because I couldn't find a place in time and I needed a place to stay so I could start my course properly and everything. It teaches you what you actually need and what you don't need and how frivolous you kind of are before. It's given me a whole new kind of minimalist ethic and it works. I'm a changed man. The time here will definitely be the best time of my life and I want to tell my kids about it.
How are you getting that? Sophie, Hayley and Lizzie are students at the University of the Arts. They're currently living in a pub that's been lying empty for 6 years.
I've actually met quite a lot of students who are squatting. It seems to be the option they're turning to because rent is so expensive and it's very hard to budget and live as a student in London. People think that squatting is quite an easy option, but it all depends on what house you end up in and what people you end up living with. Just the idea of living in a pub, not many people get to experience that. A pub with a piano and you can do it, the possibilities are endless here,
It's a lot of negative press because of all the squat parties that go on. You just get branded as this sort of raving meathead a lot of the time. Whereas everyone in this house works, they're all studious, they all work, we're very proactive, creative people.
When I was growing up, I lived with my mum for the most part, and my mum and my dad were divorced, and he squatted, and I spent half my time with him. The owner thinks we're rock stars, basically. He had court cases that were being prepared against him for damage that was happening to adjacent properties, water damage, the environmental health for this borough on his back. We've taken away all of his problems. I've never been happier, honestly. I can pursue all of my passions without any worries. I've got money and time, which for the first time in London, I didn't think that would happen for me for many years. I encounter all the usual attitudes about squatting, and I relish the opportunity to put them straight and show them wrong. I really do.
There will always be student squatters as long as the fees keep going up and up and up and up.
There are approximately 80,000 empty homes in London. Arts London News is here at London Bridge to speak to David Ireland, Chief Executive of the charity Empty Homes. We want to find out why are there so many empty homes in London, especially at a time when there are 800,000 Londoners on the social housing list.
So the reason a lot of properties are empty is because they're in poor condition. The owners can't get the loan anymore to get to renovate the property. And my view on it is that squatting's sort of inevitable. If you have properties which are empty and people who need properties, then they'll find each other. Now, what I'd far rather see is that there is systems in place for people to be able to use those homes without having to squat them, with the permission of the owner. And that's what I like about short life housing. It's what I like about property guardian schemes, is that everybody's a winner. Squatting is a sort of kind of a one-sided advantage. The squatter gets somewhere to live, but the owner actually gets lumbered with a problem.
With the government pumping £100 million into these empty homes, are we going to see a lot of squatters forced to leave their accommodation?
I think the £100 million is going to be very, very useful, but it is not going to bring hundreds of thousands of properties back into use. It's going to have an impact, but it's not going to have anything. It's not going to turn off the supply of properties for squatting. Let's put it like that.
Arts London News speaks to Belinda Port from the National Housing Federation.
We reckon that the average 21-year-old now, who's on an average sort of wage and is going to increase their wage through their working life, will probably have to wait until they're 54 years old, I think it is, before they can actually afford the 20% deposit, which is increasingly needed, and qualify for a mortgage. I think it must be extremely difficult for students to live in London. I suppose some students study in London because their parents are here in London and they have a family home. Others, you find, you will share housing, you'll cram a lot of people into larger family homes. I think there are all kinds of options which people pursue. But yes, increasingly London must be a very much less attractive place for students.
Squatting is generally a temporary measure, with most ending in the inevitable eviction. Some, however, do end in victory. In the meantime, the empty home battle in our nation's capital is and will continue to be fought.